Hearty welcome to everyone. My name is Benedict. I'm a co-founder of Bangalore Business Literature Festival. A warm welcome to Dr. Aravind Chinchure and Professor Rishikesha Krishnan. Firstly, huge congratulations to Arvind's book, The New Age Organization, How to Navigate Rapid Disruption and Lead in the Fourth Industrial Revolution. Best of luck, Aravind. Hope it goes and becomes a bestseller. Yeah, so happy to see an excellent turnout today. I think the best we've had so far as part of the New Book, New Chat initiative, which we started last year. This is the first this year and sixth since we started last year. So the idea of a new book, new chat is that new authors and authors of new books don't get enough exposure, enough platforms to market and speak about their book. So we started this and it's been quite a success so far, and hope that it grows and gets better. Very brief about those who don't know about Bangalore Business Literature Festival. So we started this in a group of a bunch of authors, started this in 2015 to promote business literature in India. We are happy to say that we've hosted more than 200 authors so far in the 7 editions which we have conducted, and Rishi is an integral part of BBLF. Thank you, Rishi, for being there for us. And yes, so why are we meeting today? What are we doing today? Essentially, to talk about Arvind's book, of course, but to see where organizations have evolved. Over a millennia, they have taken many forms, and most of us are products of the industrial age organization, especially since the last 3 centuries. And it has been resisting change for the longest period, and we have been paying a big price for it. But I think time has come for that industrial age organization to change and a new organization to emerge. And that's why we are here, and Arvind's book is all about that. And it's not just an academic book, it is a practitioner's book. So that's why I was quite excited when I saw the book, when I think Dr. Mashelkar, who's written the foreword to the book, tweeted, and then that's how I got to know about your book. So thank you, Dr. Mashelkar. Okay, so let me briefly introduce Rishi, and then let Rishi introduce Aravind and take it from here. Rishi is one of India's tall leaders in innovation, and is an author himself of a really interesting book. It's called 8 Steps to Innovation, Going from Jugaad to Excellence, published in 2013 by Collins India. So I've been prodding him, when is he doing a sequel or a new book on innovation? Maybe after this discussion, he'll get inspired to do that. So Rishi is the director of IIM Bangalore, and he's been leading it with quite a lot of energy and enthusiasm. We see a lot of innovative changes, that initiatives that he has introduced. And of course, a big welcome to the audience. We have this 175. God, it's unheard of. 175 is a huge number. And welcome to the audience. I'm sure you're going to enjoy this. Over to Rishi.
Hey, thank you, Benedict. And first of all, congratulations, Benedict, for running the Business Literature Festival so successfully for several years now. I think it's become an important event on Bangalore's calendar. And of course, a special welcome to Dr. Aravind Chinchure. I'm going to call him Aravind through this conversation. Aravind, welcome. Congratulations on your new book. It certainly has a very catchy and very contemporary title, so that's a good start. Aravind, of course, is a multifaceted person. He has a very strong background in research and technology. He has a PhD from TIFR. He worked in research institutions. He's worked in several top companies, including GE, Honeywell. He was in the Reliance Leadership and Innovation Center. And he is now running QLeap Academy, which is trying to, again, revolutionize innovation and the creativity and a whole lot of other things across the Indian ecosystem. So, Aravind, welcome. It's good to have someone like you who spans, so many domains. You span, of course, very deep technical research. You also have worked in some of the leading companies. You're now, of course, in your own venture. So it's, it's great to have somebody with this kind of profile. So welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, so Aravind, I think let's just start before we jump into the book itself. Maybe you should just give us a little bit of background. So what was the motivation for writing this book?
Yes. No, thank you very much, Professor Krishnan. This is such an incredible honor and privilege to have a conversation with you. And I know you. I still remember, my first meeting in your office when I was in Honeywell in 2007, and we continue to remain in touch, continue to work together in certain committees. And thank you. I must express my gratitude to Mr. Benedict giving such an important platform to a new author like me, and this Bangalore Business Literature festival is a very important platform, and getting an honor to be part of this is something which is so gratifying, so humbling.
It's our honor. It's our honor as well.
So, Rishi, let me, when you ask this question, what motivated me to write the book? There are two dimensions. Let me share. The first is about my interest in the book, or interest in the literature. So I was so lucky that my father, one of the most valuable gifts in my life is books. So I still remember during my childhood reading books in Kannada, Hindi, Marathi, English, and sometimes Sanskrit. And by the time I finished my high school, I must have read a couple of 100 books. And I distinctly remember reading two most important books that have really influenced me. One is Lokmanya Tilak's Gita Rahas. It's a critic of on Gita, where you have Sanskrit verses and explained in Marathi, and both Eastern and Western philosophies the same. And the second book that has really I read, even I could finish my high school, was Dale Carnegie's How to Make Friends and Influence People. And then, of course, lots and lots of books. And this love for my, books and reading always made me that one day I should write a book in my life. I think that origin or a dream of a child or a childhood that continued. Now, the question is why I did not write a book. I continued my studies, higher studies. Then I went on to work in the industry. And every year I was learning something new or taking up larger responsibilities. And in 2014, I said, now that, I have done whatever I have been doing, let me move out of my corporate career. And first thing I wanted to do was write a book. So 2014 was the time I left my corporate career, hoping that I will write a book. And believe me, that did not happen. I got busy with so many other engagements with the government, institutions, and all kinds of things. And then something very important happens in my life. So I went to meet my friend in Maratha Chamber of Commerce and Industries, which is one of the largest Chamber of Commerce in Pune, and the Director General Prashant Girbane, he knew me and he knows the kind of experience and insights that I bring. And in fact, he provoked me and he challenged me. Aravind, why you keep your insights, your knowledge, your experience with you? You should write a book. And that really changed. That encounter with Prashant changed my way of thinking that keeping that book second priority. The second incident, Professor Krishnan, is that it was mid of 2018, and suddenly I see a report in Fortune, and that report says the fall of GE. That was in May 2018, and that report or that article really shook me to the core. For a simple reason is that GE is and was an iconic company for all of us, whether it is innovation, whether it is a technology, whether it's a research, whether it's a management, whether it's a leadership, whether it is growth, whether it is a diversification strategy. It is not just a company. The most or many companies around the world, and particularly in India, they were looking up to GE as a best practice or a benchmark. And when a company like GE had a sudden fall, that really shook me, to the core.
Yes, Aravind, so let me just interrupt you for a minute. So I think this is an interesting time for me to ask you another different question. So one of the first things you write about in your book is, how, just quoting this incident, you were struck by how, in a way, GE sort of came apart. Another company where you worked for some time, Honeywell, is there, but probably stagnating, not growing very fast. And then in contrast, we have a company like Reliance, which seems to, for whom growth doesn't seem to know any limit. So, can you give us some insight into why do we see such huge differences between three really well-known and iconic companies?
Absolutely, Professor Krishnan. So after that incident, or after looking at GE, because I have worked in GE, I had admired GE, I had learned from GE, I said, let me look at companies that I have been working for, or directly, indirectly. So after GE, I worked for Microsoft, not directly, but I was a co-founding team of Intelivate, which was providing IP services to several companies, and Microsoft was one of our clients. And when I looked at Microsoft, I saw such a rapid rise of Microsoft. And then when Steve Ballmer came, there was a decline. And here Satya Nadella comes and transforms this company. And today, Microsoft is touching $2.2 trillion company, which is a fascinating story. Then I said, next I worked for Honeywell. And 2008, I was in Honeywell, $36 billion kind of a revenues, and today it's almost same. It's last 10 plus years, I see that there is a kind of a stagnation, though the market value is reasonably good. Then, very interestingly, I work at Reliance Industries, and here Reliance, as you said, continues to grow. So I think the premise of this book is what makes large companies, irrespective of their size and stature, so vulnerable today, like GE. For example, if I look at Intel now, if you look at now current state of Intel is declining. Another iconic company that all of us, their products are part of our life, is declining. And then I see that there are companies who are transforming. There are certain companies who continue to decline and stagnate. So to find the answer to why this such a changes in the organization and organizational growth. So I said, let me understand what is the root cause. What are the factors that are influencing such rise, such fall? And the first thing I found that the technology has been the biggest and most disruptor in this whole business landscape. Why? Because technology is growing exponential, continues to grow exponential. Technology is converging. And this convergence is leading to something which is unimaginable outcomes. And third is that this technology is democratizing and unleashing entrepreneurship, which startups are now disrupting the larger companies. So I said that, okay, technology is something that is impacting. What else? What else beyond technology? Then I found that sustainability is the biggest disruptor that I have been seeing now. And it continues to be a disruptor. Just to give a number, just last week, I saw two reports. One is McKinsey's and Deloitte. McKinsey report says that if we have to achieve net zero by 2050, say, let's take US, we need $9.5 trillion and every year, and we need additional $3.5 trillion because already we are spending $6 trillion. That is something which is unimaginable. And if I look at Deloitte's report, which says that if US do not reach net zero by 2050, the loss will be $14 trillion. If it means it can have $3+ trillion of additional GDP, which is very, very interesting. And then I saw that there are three other global shifts as an organization I should look at. Number one, economic shifts. There are two dimensions to economic shift. Number one is that now Eastern part of the world, the countries are economically growing. Let's take China, India, Taiwan, and many others. And then if I look at the impact of technology on economy, we are talking about digital economy today. So if I look at top 5 companies in the world, they are technology companies, they are based on data, they're based on AI and based on platform, which means that the 5 companies, Apple, Facebook, Amazon, Alphabet, if I take these companies together, $8 trillion, just 5 companies, now their market value is $8 trillion, which is very, very interesting. So now World Economic Forum is saying that the digital economy will be $60 trillion. And out of which industry right now is struggling with $3 trillion, which is very, very interesting to see how data platform is driving the economy. Then I saw geopolitics, now trade war between US and China, and look at nationalism. You know, we are now protecting our borders. The movement of physical goods is now getting restricted, but there is something else that is happening. That is, we are saying that the companies, digital companies are everywhere. Let's take Amazon, Netflix, they are there. Uber, now 170 countries and so on. And after that, I discovered something very interesting is a demographic impact. Now this Gen Z they have grown up as a digital natives, and their expectations, their aspirations are so different. When they come to work and when they work, the kind of a culture, kind of a purpose that they are looking for is very different. And then we also need products and solutions for that particular, demographic population. Then other side, we have Japan, which is old, age country. Then we need entirely different way to look at organizations. So I see, to just summarize, we have 2 biggest disruptors: technology, which is common denominator everywhere. Second is sustainability is going to have a larger impact because customers are demanding, shareholders are demanding, activists are demanding, and government is, enforcing the regulation. Then we have economic shifts, then we have geopolitical risk, and then we will have demographic opportunities and risk. I think these are the 5 things. So holistically, as an organization, we need to look at when we see this. We can explain.
Yeah, fascinating. So let me just take a deep dive into some of the complexities of 1 or 2 of these. Yes. So I'd like to take the sustainability issue first. So if you look at the whole sustainability question, I was reading an interesting article in the Indian Express a few days ago.
Yes.
So it was talking about how in Europe, a few years ago, there was a very significant shift to renewable energy.
Yes.
But, renewable energy has its ups and downs. For example, on a day when you don't have too much sunlight, you may not have so much solar energy being generated. So they use natural gas as a way of filling up those gaps when they need to generate power quickly to fill in some gap caused by non-availability of renewables. But what's also happened as a result is the demand for natural gas has gone up. With the demand for natural gas going up, the price of natural gas globally has also gone up. But then we see that natural gas has other uses. For example, it's an important input to the production of urea, which is important for fertilizers. So as a result of all this, the price of urea has now gone up, and farmers are suffering, or they're not able to buy fertilizers at the price they were expecting. Now food prices are going up. So even a simple thing like sustainability seems very complex. So how do we manage all this complexity?
I think you said it. The sustainable transition is a very, very complex issue. If I look at global level or at a level of individuals and communities, it has been a complex, and it will require a lot of different ways to bring that transformation, bring that change. So it's not easy to bring that balance. So my friend always says, Dr. Rajiv Kumar, I'm not sure whether he's joining. He says, he was part of a climate change negotiations. He was in Japan and other countries. He says, when we talk about ecology and economy always takes a priority. Ecology is always takes a second priority. So now in this process of a change and transformation, there are different forces that are playing at different levels, and as a nation and as a society, we need to ensure that there is a fair balance that gets created, and the transition becomes very, very smooth as the time goes. My feeling is that it will take another decade, because the UN Secretary General told in the last UN meeting that 2021 or 2022 is going to be the most critical year when it comes to the climate change and sustainability. And I'm part of a global research teams where we are specifically studying about sustainable transition, and particularly when you have a protected technology or IP. How do we build, what it takes to create, so sustainable transition is imperative, I guess. I think majority will accept, but what are those transition models that one has to study or one has to understand and apply? I think that is something which is going to be important, but lot of work that requires to be done. And this answer tells very important thing. What you are saying is that that as an organization, as a business, so we need to be aware, we need to see how we align to these competing different forces, so that if I'm a natural gas company or if I'm a renewable energy company, I should be adaptable, I need to be agile, I need to be resilient, I need to be responsive to such potential disruptions and challenges that will emerge. But sustainability is a very, very complex issue.
So let's look at the other thing you were talking about, which is digital and technology.
Yes.
So, one of the interesting things you just mentioned a few minutes ago is how all the top companies are essentially digital platform companies. Yes. But I'm really wondering, is it possible for every company to be a platform company? And is there going to be a space and room at all for companies that don't, or for whatever reason, cannot embrace platforms?
Absolutely no. So my experience and my recommendation would be that platforms will be there and will continue to grow. There is no question about it. The way I see things are happening in the world. As an organization, we need to know that platforms are inevitable, networks are going to be multiplier, digital connectivity, that hyper connected world is reality. Then how do I plug in as an organization in this entire platform ecosystem? I did not be creating an ecosystem itself, but can I plug in appropriately into that? What I call now is not just the system, but system of systems, so that because these different systems are coming together. And who is at the center? At the center is a customer or a user. The platforms are around the users. So I need to be either building the platform or be part of the platform. And what is driving this? One is, of course, user is at the center. I see that the fourth industrial revolution, the industry 4.0 is making that possible. So if I look at the journey, we have products, then products now started becoming smarter product. Then we say connected products or, intelligent products. From there, now we are seeing that, why not we have a platform? Only why one product? So let's create a platform where there are multiple products and the user is able to, manage and access and work with this. And then next transition is from a platform, the fourth industrial, the convergence of technologies, making it platform of platforms. It's a very interesting that the way the world is moving. So either I build a platform or build products that can get into the platforms, or build a, see where is the opportunity for me to be part of the platform.
So Aravind, interesting question from Manish Kulkarni in this context.
Mm-hmm.
He's asking whether sustainability is the new digital in terms of its potential for disruption. So how would you weigh these two?
So technology or digital is the number one. To me, the next is going to be sustainability. And why I'm giving this as a next priority or next digital is just because there are very competing forces. Like a developing nation like India, we need economic development, right? But also we need to see that we are sustainable also. We bring sustainability as a part of our program. So since there are a lot of competing things, and now what we are looking at is that we need to be net zero, or we can keep that 1.5 degrees Celsius as a part of, to be more safer by 2050. So there are 30-year window. So therefore, I would say that next digital is going to be sustainability. So
another important
Fortune 100 Fortune. I mean, I was just looking at Fortune 100 companies. Almost every company today in that list has some or the other program related to sustainability, apart from government.
Yeah. So one thing you mentioned is the importance of geopolitics, and how geopolitics is, in a way, accentuating some of these forces. So just a quick question on globalization, because, for the last 20 years and since, the book, The World is Flat, is written, and people like Tom Friedman went around the world telling everybody, that things have changed.
Yes.
But somehow it looks, at least in the last 2 or 3 years, that there's been a significant change in the nature of globalization itself. So what is your assessment? Is globalization as we knew it dead and over? Or is there still going to be globalization, but it's going to have a different avatar? How do you see globalization evolving?
So globalization is now getting into a new avatar. We call it re-globalization, or sometimes we call it globalization 4.0, or digital globalization. I think World Economic Forum, says, globalization 4.0. So what is what has changed? Say, if I look at early 2000, so when we talked about globalization, we said that whatever as a nation we were producing extra, will ship that physical goods to export it to other countries. That's how, so the borders opened up, physical goods were moving from one nation to another nation. So that's how we said, beginning of a globalization. The second shift happened is services. Now, India prospered because of our ability to export services, particularly in IT industry. Now, what is happening? Because of the geopolitical issues, there are 2 or 3 things that are becoming more and more evident. Number one, if you look at most of the countries, they are becoming more and more protective. We call it nationalism. So I have given in the book my experience in Germany. I thought Germany is more progressive, but I see that that there are political groups which are saying that we need to be protective. Brexit happened, then US, China trade war, and other thing. So now that physical movement of the goods, and other thing is the excess physical goods that were being produced in countries like India and China, they were getting now consumed within itself. So that's the one part. Second thing that is happening today in the world is now so the companies are trying to be as close to customer as possible, which means that now there are regional things like, we will have a group like European Union. So that is the group where the goods and services will be seamlessly keeps going on. In India, maybe Asia Pacific will form a group where there is this thing. So now from a global, we are turning to nationalist or more inward and also regional. But the third, which is driving globalization, perhaps, what world is, the real world is flat. I think that might now become a reality in the digital world. In a digital world, if you look at take Uber or take Airbnb, in fact, they're covered across the world. We talk about 220 countries now. Uber or Airbnb, they exist. Today, we are consumers of like Netflix. Now, Netflix is the content, the digital content is being consumed all around the world. Or take Amazon, and Amazon is everywhere. So half of the US online is happening today with Amazon. I don't know about the world. So I think that is the kind of a globalization that we will see. And that digital globalization, we call it. So globalization is not dead. It's emerging in a new avatar, and that is, we call it. So as a nation, as a business, as an organization, I'm adopting to these changes. So therefore, the book talks about this. How certain companies have been able to do.
Of course, I mean, maybe we won't have time to discuss this, but there are some obstacles to digital globalization as well.
Yes.
Things like personal data protection, new kinds of regulations, storage of data within the physical boundaries of the country. I mean, these are also some of the obstacles or roadblocks to digital globalization. But yes, I think it's an interesting point that you made. So before we move forward, let me again request all our participants online, do share some of your questions either in the Q&A or the chat. We'll be happy to take them up. I'll be sort of coming to the end of my questions in a few minutes. So I'd love to take up some of the questions which you have. So Aravind, just coming back to your book, the later part of your book is focused more on the new age organization.
Yes.
So would you like to just give us a very brief overview of what are some of the key aspects or dimensions of what you see as the new age organization?
So there are, there are 2 important things that will determine whether you are a new age organization or a traditional organization. So, or pre-industry era organization. The first is because the disruption is happening so fast, the changes that are happening in the entire landscape of a business is so quick. As an organization, I need to be agile. I need to be able to respond. I need to be able to adapt. I need to be able to rethink, reimagine, reinvent. This is possible only when I make my organization agile or nimble. And one way that I have seen, what differentiates one successful organization with respect to other organization which is not growing is that they have this so-called entrepreneurial culture, or I call it, says in a simplest way, is a startup way. So if I look at startups, the way they run, they are so agile, they are so nimble, the way they work, as a team. So there is hardly any hierarchy there. And because of that, their ability or the kind of a culture that exists in a startup, if the same culture, if we can bring it in the larger organization, I think that is going to make. Now, what is the advantage of challenge and advantage? Challenge with a larger organization to be more agile, like a startup, I'm saying, is because of their, legacy, processes, system, culture, rigidity, bureaucracy, and so many things. But if I look at the advantage of this, suppose if they have this culture like a startup, and startups are innovating very fast, with the resources, like what differentiates Reliance, when I say Reliance is like a startup or Amazon is a startup, because not only they work like a startup, but they are backed by a almost capital, which can be, I would say, enormous capital is available. When their whole ability to execute is a proven, the relationship exists. So I think it's very important if organization become like a startup, work like a startup, at least at the front end. And the second, which is the biggest discovery for me, which is also very now becoming, last 1 month, which is in under attack, is organizations just can't be working like a startup, but they need to have a larger purpose. So that organization need to move and shift their thinking from a shareholder value creation to the stakeholder value creation. And today we are talking about conscious capitalism or conscious organization, So, and there is, and if I look at, I have given examples in my book, like the way Mahindra is looking at. Mahindra's motto today is that whatever we do has to have some relevance to the people and community and sustainability. If I look at Tata's and many other companies, I think the profits had to be earned with some purpose. So profits with purpose is something that I feel organizations need to bring in. The new millennials or Gen Z will not just come and say that, okay, I'm going to give you so many crores of rupees and you join. Now they have a choice to join a company where the purpose is more important. They have certain, they take certain stand for sustainability or certain societal issues and so on. That's something which is important. And for this, we need an entirely different leadership approach. If organization has to be nimble, agile, adaptable, resilient, responsive, first thing is we need to create a culture of unboss. Because
So Aravind, just elaborate a little bit on this unbossed leadership, which you've written about in your book. Manish has also wants some clarification on that. Can you just tell us a little bit about what this unbossed leadership is?
Yes. So let me illustrate this with my own example, which I have written. Most of these things I have covered in the book with my own examples. So when I was in Leiden, and I was working for a very well-known professor in my field, Professor John Maito, she was nominated to Nobel. His office was on the first floor. And I used to always, our offices and labs were in 6th and 7th floor. What I found very interesting about John was that always he will come to 6th floor to my office to meet. I used to say, John, you just make a phone call, I will come down. He says, no, every day, or see, in my stay in Leiden, maybe I must have gone to his office once and twice. Now, how does that help me as an individual researcher? It built a very different kind of a confidence in me. I felt valued. I felt empowered. I felt that, I need to do something. When, see that trust, that value or feeling, good, that in 1.5 years, I could develop a technology for a unique product, which continues to be in the world today, that product, no competition. I developed discovered a new phenomena. And in 1.5 years in physics, it's extremely difficult to publish, say, 10 plus papers in a very good journals. So this is, I call, unbossed culture. And I saw this in Reliance. Mr. Kohli, he was a managing director of Hazira plant. I joined and I wanted to meet him. I thought he will invite me to his office. But I was told that he will be meeting me on this particular road from one plant to another plant. I became very curious. How come a MD of this thing he wants to meet? And then I realized that every day his review meetings happen in the plant with the shop floor or with the people who are actually working. And now what is happening, when I witnessed these meetings, I found that the decisions are faster. Suppose there is a problem with the finance, immediately the finance guy comes in and this thing. But most important is MD of a company coming on the floor. Imagine the morale and motivation of this. So, and now I see that this is happening when a Vas Narasimhan, Novartis, which is a 250-year-old company. Now that company is getting transformed. And he said, unbossed is the way to go. If innovation has to happen, if we need to be agile, we need to be adaptable, if we need to create something. So that's,
Yeah, so, but of course, it's quite interesting, Aravind. Some of these ideas are not entirely new, right? I mean,
yes.
Hewlett-Packard, maybe 50, 60 years ago, talked about management by walking around. MBWA, I remember. Then, you fast forward a little bit. I remember there used to be legendary stories about how Rusi Modi knew all the workers on the Tata Steel shop floor.
Yes.
More recently, you could look at somebody like Baba Kalyani and Bharat Forge, again, had a legendary relationship with all the employees working there. So I think this is all just, in a way, good management practices that we are sort of getting reminded about once again. Okay, let me just come to another interesting question which Naveen has asked. So he wants to know, is there any difference between an Indian New Age organization and a Western New Age organization? And if so, if there are any, whether you could elaborate a bit on that.
So I have not looked at, when I was writing the book, I said I will not focus my book only on organizations which are based in India or Western. So whatever I have written and whatever I, my whole that model or framework of a new age organization applies to companies in India equally to the Western world. So I don't see that there is any differentiation with respect to companies who are based in different localities, different geographies.
Yes, I want to ask you one slightly more practical question. This is about some of the skills and some of the attitudes which you talk about in the book. For example, you talk about the importance of a concept like servant leadership, which is a bit like, the unbossed kind of culture you were just describing. Then you also spoke about the importance of empathy, and you've given examples of people like Satya Nadella. You also mentioned a little earlier, and you've written about it in your book, that it's not enough to just have system thinking. You need systems of systems thinking. It's multi-level kind of thing now. Now, how do we teach or how do we inculcate these kind of approaches in students or young managers? Because, as a director of a management institute, one of my challenges is how do we change our curriculum and how do we change our pedagogy so that we can get some of these new things to work. And essentially these are all behavioral changes. They're not just concepts, right? So any insights into how we can go about inculcating some of these ideas?
So perhaps each may need a little bit different approach, but
Sure.
I will give a very
You
generic
can just give an example. Yeah. Sure.
examples and this thing. Of course, Pradnya, just I saw in the message that Zoho kind of just she reminded Zoho I have given a case study about
Sure.
compassionate, empathetic leadership and so on. Let's take Zoho as a company because of Sridhar Vembu. He ensured that he will empower, train a talent which is coming from tier 3 or tier 4 villages and may not be from a premium research, premium schools. And now if I look at, so he started this Zoho school. And in the Zoho school, neighborhood school students, they came and they got trained, and sometimes they joined as a watchman and they became a software developer and so on. So that ability to include those perhaps not included, or they did not get an opportunity to join in some best schools. Now, how that is benefiting Zoho? It is benefiting Zoho because look at now, in Bangalore or metros, there is a talent war. In IT, every company, particularly the startups.
Yeah, sorry, Aravind, sorry to interrupt you, but I think that's not the question. The question is, how do we create people like Sridhar Vembu or maybe like Nutella? I mean, they seem to be in a way sort of exceptions or outliers in a sense. The question is, how do you create more people like them?
I think because I saw the message, I think chat. So my Zoho became because I have written the case study about Zoho. So there are first I think as an institution, whether it's IIM Bangalore or say IIIT Harvard, where I'm now teaching, or any other school. Fundamentally, if I go to the core, to become a system of system thinker, or becoming more, a person who can really solve certain problems or become more entrepreneurial, are two things, and they are multiplied. The first is, can institution enable students, or say in the organization, say young leaders, the diversity of thoughts, diversity of ideas, diversity of experiences. So as an institution, we need to see as an organization that is there a diversity of a learning that is happening, the experiences that we are having. See, if you look at now, when I was working in say Symbiosis and many other institutions, so we have set of curriculum and we have certain case studies, and I think, and there is a competition, assignment, marks and everything. But sometimes we miss that diversity. How do I achieve that diversity? What it means is that we need to start taking students to different immersions, and many different. In my book, I have given an example how Microsoft brings those values, or how transformation happens in Microsoft. So immersions are very, very important. Experiences are very important. For example, how do I learn these things? Like when I was in Pune, and now I shifted to Hubli. So first day of my new year, I will spend it in villages with women in a social work. Believe me, the kind of a change and transformation that will happen. So, or I'm in New York, I decided to go and work in Bangladesh. So that diversity is extremely important, whether then diversity of learning different topics. And so. The second, which is a multiplier, is the cognitive flexibility. How do we build this cognitive flexibility? We need to be open. Our mind has to be open, which is not easy, by the way, because our education system does not bring that flexibility. Because as a child, we had a cognitive flexibility, but by the time I reached 12th standard, because that whole flexibility has brought it down. So now these things need to be opened up. These faculties need to be opened up. So this is a very powerful way by which we can, start creating talent, which does not think deductively. Right now, there is a lot of deductions that are happening, but they think expansively. They look at the things in a very, very systems, platforms, in a broader way. The third is, of course, you can learn by reading and experiencing many things. And I can give examples after examples on this area. Last, about empathy. See, empathy, there are coaches. EQ, there are coaches, there are institute, but still we are not able to really create more empathetic leaders or more EQ leaders or less. I mean, I'm just, when I work in the corporates, I see that people don't talk to each other. They're very process driven. There is no human connect, human feeling in the institutions. In fact, I wrote a report to one of the companies while I was doing the diagnostic. They felt that how can, I find that this institution or that corporate lacks empathy. So how do we deal this? So I see some very innovative ways by which we can learn these things. For example, playing games. So I have a friend in Pune. So he has done some pilots with ETS Zurich, with 2 universities in South Korea. And he developed this game called Real Lives. And see, if sometimes, it's not easy. I mean, though, Zamil Zaki of Stanford says that, empathy is like a muscle, you can build the muscle. Or, Daniel Goleman says he created the social EQ institute and so on. But I think to begin with, if we can, introduce these concepts through games like Real Lives. So this game enables me to be part. Suppose if I'm talking to someone in South Africa or Bangladesh, it puts me in their shoes and looks at their economic conditions and all those things. I think these are the innovative approaches. If we can build within the institutions and in the larger organization, perhaps we may be able to create more and more.
Yeah, that's a good point, because I think one of the challenges we're also seeing as a result of COVID and a lot of the movement towards digital learning is that we're not able to provide some of the physically immersive learning experiences we could earlier. So we have to now figure out whether we can provide similar or alternate experiences digitally. So that's again another different challenge altogether. Okay, let me come to the last question which I have, which is again based on one of the questions in the chat, which is about the whole question of how you work with the new age workforce. So you've talked about new age organizations, but we also know that there are many challenges in working with. Earlier, we used to talk about the challenge in working with millennials. Now we talk about the challenges in working with Gen Z, as people often call them. So you have any insights into, first of all, how are these groups different from the people we used to see in the workplace earlier, and what does it take to really work effectively with them?
So let me give an example, real example. So I was speaking to a chairman of a company, couple of $1 billion company, IT company. So he made a statement. He said that mid-level management is not contributing to either bottom line and top line. I said, why? And these mid-level managers or leaders, they were the products of Y2K. Because they were part of this IT journey, so they moved on to become a leader. They became a leader. He said that if they have to work with Gen Z, say now the youngest population, which is I think 2.6 billion people today are Gen Z, and out of that, the senior most Gen Z are working in the companies, and they are born with devices, connectivity. The way they, if you look at our own children, the way they think, the way they work, the way they have their own social life, and for them, some of the things are so intuitive. Now, Gen Z, person comes into the organization and he has to work with digital migrant, almost migrant. And there is a big conflict. So now the chairman said that, then of course, this was a real conversation that I have recorded in the book and given in the book. So what is the solution today? The solution is that our middle management or so-called senior leaders need to first unlearn. unlearn many things, which is, by the way, not easy. Then they need to really learn new skills, the skills of a new age organization, leadership, and so on. It's not about command and control. It's about working with this thing. And now, if I look at the numbers, how many people need to be now trained and upskilled and reskilled? It is billion people. World Economic Forum says skilling revolution. For how many billion people need to be upskilled and reskilled so that they are eligible to work in fourth industrial revolution, which is massive. If we don't do that, OECD countries will lose some $20 trillion and something. So I think as a educational institutions and many other institutions have a very, very big role to play in this upskilling and reskilling. Otherwise, perhaps we'll become redundant, because automation is coming. Machines are becoming more intelligent than humans. Then, so how do we become more relevant? Therefore, in my book, I give a lot of emphasis on two things. One is human skills. And second thing is, of course, you need to learn to be creative, innovative, and other things. So this is the context. So
sure. Of course, many of the consulting reports have been talking about the importance of augmentation, moving from automation to augmentation, and there human beings will play an important complementary role to machines. I think you've also spoken in your book about how, while lots of jobs are going to be lost, lots of new jobs are also likely to be created. And therefore, people who can develop the skills for those new jobs will be well placed. Of course, so I think the bottom line is we're going to see a lot of flux. We're going to see a lot of change. As you mentioned earlier, it's about agility and resilience, probably not only in organizations, I think in individuals as well. So I think there's a lot of discussion these days about the importance of continuous learning, lifelong learning, as they call it, and therefore the need for people to learn new skills at many times in their careers, possibly not even have a single career, maybe have multiple careers during their lifetime. So it looks like going forward, things will be quite different from the way they were earlier. So thanks a lot, Aravind. I think that was fascinating. Let me once again recommend to everyone, if you have not read it already, here's the book. I don't know if it might reflect off, but if you're able to see it, yeah, it's The New Age Organization, How to Navigate Rapid Disruption and Lead in the Fourth Industrial Revolution. I'm hoping Aravind will also get into some of the contradictions and conflicts and all that in his next book, because I think there are several challenges which the New Age Organization will face going forward. But thank you for enlightening us about the book and all the arguments that have gone into it. So thank you very much, Aravind, and let me hand you back to Benedict.
Thank you. It's such a pleasure. So
thanks, Rishi. Thanks, Rishi. We still have 2 minutes. I don't want to let that 2 minutes go waste. So any concluding thoughts, Aravind?
So
for the audience here.
So I think I will just extend what Professor Krishnan said. So it is extremely important for all of us to learn how to learn, learning to learn, and continuously learn. I think that is going to be the biggest asset that we can hold, because the world is going to change, takes different shapes, different challenges. So it's our ability to continuously learn is something going to be very, very important, and focus on more human skills. I think future, as he said, augmentation, working with the machines and so on. If we want to be ready for that, I think it's extremely important that we build those human skills, not only for organization, which is important, but for also individuals. So I think but I feel that as a India, let me come to Indian perspective. I think first time in the history, India has an opportunity to prepare and lead in the fourth industrial revolution. First time. First industrial revolution happened, we were under East India Company. We had just finished our classical Ladai. Second industrial revolution happened, we were under Britishers. And we lost these two industrial revolutions for our economic prosperity and well-being. The third industrial revolution, we took pie of it because of our IT, and therefore you see, today whatever we are is a result of third industrial revolution. But for the first time in the history, that we can prepare for leadership in fourth industrial revolution. We have certain assets and possibly create our own fifth industrial revolution. I think
three things you think we should do right to get there quickly. 3 things which we need to do to take advantage of the fourth and the fifth revolution.
The first is that just focus on our strengths. Number one, what is our strength is digital, IT. In the fourth industrial revolution, the second component is OT, operations technology, like robotics and other things. So if as a nation, we focus on digital side of it and be at the cutting edge, whether it's a data, AI, and many other things. So where is the biggest opportunity for us to do this is the cognitive systems. We can build actually cognitive systems. Second area where India can lead is digital twins, because we have the base, the foundation for building solutions of digital twin. And we can actually, if 2 things we focus, I think we should be able to actually take maximum out of fourth industrial revolution, because we become the solution providers to the world, because every company is looking at cognitive systems. And the second, which is most important, is that if I see the way startups are, the entrepreneurship is growing. So last year, 2021, we had 50 plus unicorns. Now I think we need to get into the third wave of entrepreneurial growth, where we will start talking about either deep tech companies which are global, or we have startups which can take up a challenge of billion people and solve those billion people. And there is a lot that exists at the tier 2, tier 3, or particularly for the Bharat. The last point is, see, so far we are fragmented. We are fragmented in terms of individuals, institutions, and so on. What it requires is, if the impact has to be multiplied, it has to be network and integrate. Unless we work in the form of because future is all about, fourth industrial revolutions. The core concept is about multiplying things by creating these networks. The platforms are enabling those networks and so on. So instead of investing billions of dollars in isolation for data, AI one side, another, that perhaps will not happen. So we have to integrate, we have to network and multiply as a society, as a nation. I'm sure we will be able to lead in the fourth industrial revolution.
Thank you so much. On that note, we could call this session to a close. It was really enthralling. Thank you so much, Aravind. Thank you so much, Rishi, for doing this. I'm sure this book is going to be a great conversation starters for organizations and also to the governments to frame their future policies. And I think the note with which you ended is really interesting, that India can lead the fourth industrial revolution. On that note, thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.